When people talk about Syria, many only think of war, crisis, and destruction. But what almost no one knows is that behind all this lies a country that holds some of the oldest stories on the planet. Cities were born here long before Rome, Greece, or Egypt became empires. It is a land of traditions that are still alive today, of markets that seem frozen in time, and of a people who, even after so much, remain steadfast. Syria is much more than what you see in the news. It is full of curiosities, contrasts, and things that many people cannot even imagine. And today, Bello Mundo takes you to discover this other side, the Syria that almost no one talks about, but that everyone should know. Number 1. Location and geographical data. If you look at the map, you will see that this country is in the middle of the Middle East, in a position that has never been just geographical. It has always been strategic. It connects 3 continents: Asia, Europe, and Africa. In other words, it is literally a crossroads of civilizations, trade, and of course, a lot of history. The borders help to understand this importance. To the north, Turkey; to the east, Iraq; to the south, Jordan; and on the other side, in the southwest, it borders Lebanon and Israel. To top it off, it also has a strip of coastline bathed by the Mediterranean Sea. Small, but super strategic. In terms of size, it is about 185,000 square kilometers. That means it is roughly the size of Oklahoma. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in diversity. And I mean diversity. In the west, the Jabal an-Nusayriya Mountains run parallel to the coast. This region is practically another country within the country. A humid climate, cedar and oak forests, and landscapes that no one imagines when they think of the Middle East. When you head towards the center, everything changes. The Orontes River Valley appears, a super fertile area that has always been the agricultural heart of the region. You could say that this is where most of the food that supplies the country comes from. Now, if you head east, the landscape changes again. The forest and valley disappear, and you enter the Syrian desert, a vast expanse of sand that stretches to the deserts of Iraq and Saudi Arabia. It's that classic movie setting: strong sun, sand as far as the eye can see, and relentless heat. The capital, Damascus, is located to the southwest, in a region surrounded by mountains. And it's not just any city. It proudly competes for the title of one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. In the north is Aleppo, which for centuries was a commercial powerhouse. It was like a hub where everyone came to exchange goods, cultures, and stories, connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa in a single point. The climate? It varies a lot, and depending on where you are, it doesn't even feel like you're in the same country. On the coast, the climate is milder, humid, even Mediterranean-like. But inland, it's scorching hot. In the summer, it easily hits 50 degrees Celsius, and in the mountains, winter brings snow. And if the geography already gives you a great first impression, just wait until we get into the history of this place. Number 2. History. If today we look at this territory and see war, ruins, and heavy headlines, it's because, before that, it was the stage for some of the greatest stories in human history. It's no exaggeration to say that much of the world's history has passed through here. 5,000 years ago, peoples such as the Canaanites, Arameans, and Phoenicians were already settled here, building cities, developing trade, and leaving marks that can still be seen today in the ruins scattered throughout the country. Then came the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, a string of empires that dominated and transformed this land. Each left a piece of themselves behind in the architecture, culture, customs, and even the language. And for those with ties to Christianity, this territory is also symbolic. It was here, on the famous Damascus Road, that St. Paul, until then a persecutor of Christians, had his vision, converted, and became one of the most important apostles in history. During the Islamic period, the region continued to play a leading role. Damascus became the capital of the Umayyad Empire, which stretched from Spain to India. It was during this period that the Great Mosque of Damascus was built, one of the most important mosques in the Islamic world to this day. Then came the Fatimids, followed by the Ayyubids, the period of the famous Saladin of the Crusades, then the Mamluks, and finally the Ottomans, who controlled the region for over 400 years. When the Ottoman Empire fell at the end of World War I, France took control of the territory, following the typical colonial model of the time, and so it remained until 1946, when they finally gained independence. But stability did not come. The country plunged into a series of coups and instability until, in 1970, Hafez al-Assad took power, remained in office for more than 30 years, and started a political dynasty that continued until recently, with his son, Bashar al-Assad, in charge. In short, this piece of the map carries 5,000 years of history, and a history that is far from peaceful. And if that past is already complex, wait until you see who lives here today. Number 3. Population, languages, and diversity. Syria has about 18 million inhabitants, and it is not just one people. It is a huge mix of origins, languages, and traditions. The majority are Arab, but there is a very strong Kurdish community, mainly in the northeast, which has been fighting for decades to preserve its culture and seek greater autonomy within the country. In addition to the Kurds, Turkmen, Armenians, Circassians, and Assyrians, direct descendants of the peoples of ancient Mesopotamia, also live here. They are the ones who still keep alive one of the oldest languages in the world, Aramaic, the same language spoken in the time of Jesus. Arabic is the official language, but if you walk around Qamishli, you hear Kurdish. In Aleppo, you hear Armenian. And in the Christian villages in the countryside, you can still attend an entire mass in Aramaic. The religious makeup is similar. The majority, about 70%, are Sunni Muslims, but there are also Alawites, who are the Assad family group, as well as Christians of various denominations, Druze, Ismailis, and a very small Jewish community, which has played a very important role in the region's history. Living in such a setting has never been easy. Throughout history, this meeting of peoples has generated both periods of peace and incredible cultural exchanges, as well as moments of tension and conflict. This mixture, however challenging, is what has built Syria's identity. And it's in everything, in the food, the music, the clothes, the parties, and the way of life of those who grew up here. And speaking of lifestyle, there is a tradition that spans generations, is part of everyday life, culture, and social life, and is still alive today in the ancient cities of Syria, the Turkish bath. Number 4. The tradition of hammams. If there is one building you will find in almost every traditional city here, it is the hammam, the famous Turkish bath. But here, the hammam has never been just a place to wash. It is much more than that. It is a meeting place, a place for conversation, business, and rituals. It has been part of social life for centuries. The ritual follows a set routine. First, you enter a warm room to start relaxing. Then you go to a much hotter room, where a professional uses a rough glove to exfoliate your skin, removing all the dead skin. Next comes a massage with scented soap, and to finish, a cold shower to refresh you completely. There is a curious detail. Hammams are divided by day or time for men and women. And there is a very special day known as Hammam al-Arusa, which is reserved only for brides, usually on Friday, the day before the wedding. It's like a farewell ritual to single life, only the Syrian version. In fact, for them, this space has always had an even greater meaning. It is one of the few places where women can relax, laugh, talk, take care of themselves, away from male eyes. And yes, it is still like that today. Speaking of brides, if there is a moment that is steeped in tradition, it is the wedding. Number 5. Wedding traditions. Weddings in Syria are not just ceremonies, they are events steeped in tradition, history, and celebration, and they don't last just one day. The festivities usually last 2 to 3 days, following customs that have been passed down from generation to generation since the days of grandmothers and great-grandmothers. It all starts at the bride's house. On the first few days, she wears a colorful dress, which symbolizes joy and prosperity. Family and close friends gather to celebrate, sing, dance, and, of course, participate in one of the most important rituals, the application of henna. During the henna party, women draw delicate designs on the bride's hands and feet, and on anyone else who wants them, symbolizing protection, fertility, and good luck. And there's more. It is common for the bride to tattoo her fiancé's name in henna on some part of her body, as a kind of amulet for the new cycle. Meanwhile, at the groom's house there is another celebration, this one just for the men of the family and their friends. And here comes a very striking tradition, the sacrifice of one or more sheep. The laham, the community butcher, is responsible for this, preparing the meat for one of the most symbolic dishes in Arabic cuisine, mansaf, rice with meat and yogurt. The table is also laden with traditional sweets, lots of tea, and of course, lots of music and dancing. On the third day, the big party takes place, usually in a large hall or open space. Here, the two families come together, the bride and groom, parents, siblings, friends, and the entire community. The party starts around 7 in the evening, with men and women in separate rooms, according to Islamic tradition. Around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the groom enters the women's hall, accompanied by his father, father-in-law, brothers, and grandparents. This is when the exchange of rings and gifts takes place. The groom presents the bride with a piece of jewelry, usually gold or diamonds. The mothers of the bride and groom also give gifts to the bride, marking the beginning of her new life. Soon after, the wedding cake is cut, and from then on, only the groom remains in the women's hall. The rest of the men return to the men's hall, and the party continues into the night, with lots of dancing, music, food, and, of course, lots of joy. Number 6. The coffee ritual. Continuing with traditions, let's talk about coffee, because if there's one tradition that's present in practically every Syrian home, it's this one. But here, drinking coffee has never been just a matter of taste. It's a ritual full of meaning. First comes the preparation. Arabic coffee is prepared in a small pot called a rakweh, usually with sugar and sometimes with a touch of cardamom. The drink is strong, very concentrated, and arrives at the table in tiny cups without handles, always accompanied by a glass of water. But the most interesting part comes after the coffee is finished. It's time to read the grounds, an ancient tradition passed down from mother to daughter for generations. Here's how it works. When you're done, you spin the cup 3 times, turn it upside down on the saucer, and wait. The grounds that drip down form patterns on the bottom and sides of the cup, and then the magic begins. Some people take this very seriously. Specialized women look at the patterns and make interpretations ranging from travel predictions, the arrival of money, love, to warnings about problems. A straight line, It could be a trip, circles, money coming in, and so on. There are those who do not make any important decisions in life without first consulting the coffee grounds. It's the kind of tradition that mixes spirituality, intuition, and, of course, lots of good conversation around the table. Number 7. Gastronomy. And after understanding the geography, history, people, and traditions here, we can't leave out one of the most important parts of Syrian culture, the food. Because look, when you set foot in Syria, you also set foot on one of the best gastronomic routes in the Middle East. The cuisine here is a perfect reflection of everything the country has experienced. It mixes Arabic, Turkish, Persian, and Mediterranean influences, and the result is simply wonderful. It's hard to know where to start. There's kibbeh, which can be fried, baked, or raw, always seasoned to perfection with a flavor like no other. There's also hummus, which everyone knows, but here it has an incredibly creamy texture, finished with extra virgin olive oil and pine nuts. And for those who like fresh and light dishes, there is fattoush, a salad full of herbs, tomatoes, cucumbers, and toasted pita bread, which gives it the perfect crunch. But the real Syrian experience is sitting down for a meze, a series of small dishes that arrive before the main meal. You can fill the table with more than 20 different options. Baba ganoush, dry curd, stuffed grape leaves, seasoned chickpeas, peppers, pastes, cheeses, olives. It's practically a feast before the feast. And there's one detail that's part of the tradition. Most of the dishes are eaten with your hands. Pita bread becomes your cutlery. You use it to pick up portions, wrap them, dip them in sauce. Everything seems simple, but there's a very well-defined etiquette. Always with the right hand, never with the left, which is traditionally considered impure. And there's more. You should only take from the part of the plate in front of you. No reaching over to your neighbor's plate. It's an experience that goes beyond taste. Eating here is about connection, conviviality, pure culture. Number 8. The Souk and the art of bargaining. If there's one place that sums up the soul of Syrian commerce, it's the Souk. And it doesn't matter if you're in Damascus, Aleppo, or any other historic city here. There will always be a souk waiting for you. But don't go thinking it's just a market. The souk is a universe unto itself, a labyrinth of covered streets filled with the smell of spices, the scent of incense, carpets, fabrics, metals, sweets, gold, silver. There's so much that you can easily get lost. Each part of the souk specializes in a type of product. There's the fabric street, the spice street, the jeweler's street, the shoemaker's street, and so on. And of course, one rule is sacred. Here, no one pays the first price. Haggling isn't just allowed, it's mandatory. It's part of the game. Here's how it works. The seller gives you an absurd price. You offer less than half. He pretends to be offended, puts his hand on his chest, looks shocked, offers you tea, asks where you're from, strikes up a conversation about your family. And after much talk, laughter, and diplomacy, you arrive at a price that suits you both. The whole process can take 10 minutes or an hour, because in reality, the negotiation here is as valuable as the product itself. Number 9. The tradition of storytellers. To conclude our journey through this country full of customs and traditions, let's talk about one that is unfortunately disappearing: the Hakawati, or storytellers. In the old days, it was not uncommon to walk into a traditional cafe, one of those really old ones in Damascus or Aleppo, and find a man sitting on a special chair, book in hand, voice powerful, and an entire audience glued to him. The Hakawati did not read, he performed. He did the voice of the hero, the voice of the villain. He imitated horses, swords, storms, laughter, and he told stories that sometimes lasted for weeks. That's right. Each night was a chapter, always ending at the height of suspense, to ensure that everyone would return the next day. The most famous stories were the adventures of Abu Zayd al-Hilali, a legendary Bedouin hero. But there were also stories of love, war, magic, bravery, kings, and merchants. Over time, TV and the internet took over, and the tradition faded away. Today, there are very few active Hakawati. Some perform more for tourists in historic cafes, trying to keep alive this art that, for centuries, was the Netflix of the Arab world. And that's it for today. Now tell me, did you enjoy this trip to Syria? Which of these curiosities surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments which one was your favorite, and don't forget to like it if you enjoyed learning more about this fascinating country. See you on the next adventure through our Bello Mundo.